But like, when was that switch for you of wanting to put yourself in those situations? Like before you, I'm assuming you were just like a regular bloke.
Nah, I was definitely below regular.
Yeah.
I was it kind of like stems back to when I was growing up, and that journey like through my childhood, and then that stemming into my teenage years and young adulthood. Like Dylan's probably one of the only few that can contest to the kind of person that I used to be before, and that is not me who is sitting in front of you now. Like I've done a complete 180 on who I am as a person. I could barely even sit here and look you guys in the eyes, let alone be in the same room.
Do you want me to describe like what you actually like?
Yeah, you can have a crack at it.
Alright. So me and Johnny Boy, we actually connected from playing Call of Duty professionally.
And what age is this?
I was probably what? I might have been 18 or 19 then.
It was
probably a bit younger, 16.
like we kind of first knew each other from, it would have been like Black Ops 1 almost, like when we started
competing against each
Yeah.
other.
So you two were just like playing online.
Yeah.
And that's how you two met?
Yeah, so like I had a
Pretty
team
much,
that
yeah.
I built called Team Emperor.
Yep.
And that was my squad. And I was like, we were like the underdogs. And like we like really tried to rise the ranks. And everybody knew us. Like we weren't coming from like an A-class league. We fucking built this shit.
Mm.
And then Johnny Boy was in a similar position as well. So we would always like verse each other.
Okay.
And all the other top dogs, they would just, they're up themselves. They wouldn't want to compete with us.
Yeah.
But then we would rock up to LAN. We'd get like 4th place and stuff like this. But then eventually, like we were hitting a limit because I just felt like we didn't have the talent in my team to go to the next level. And luckily, Johnny Boy was just like, hey, man, sent me a message. Hey, you're a really good player. We were just going back and forth. Then we created our own team. It's like Johnny Boy was the leader.
Oh,
Johnny
really?
Boy started that team.
Yeah,
Let's go,
kinda.
Johnny.
Not really. Like, yeah, it was a shared effort.
Yeah.
Shared effort between the both of you?
Well, it was his idea. Johnny Boy's idea.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but like it was one of those things where
Wait, but you two separated from your respective teams and went, oh, I didn't know
created
that.
the
I didn't know that.
created the
Yeah.
God
Yeah.
Squad.
The craziest thing is like,
What was it called?
Well, we played under Adamant at the time.
we
Yeah,
had a
during that
sponsor.
time. Yeah.
Oh
yeah,
shit!
we
I
had a
didn't know
manager
this.
and everything.
I
Let's
didn't
go,
know that's
boys.
how it went down. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
And our manager, fun fact, was a Age of Empires pro.
Hey.
Sesh?
Sesh.
Boys, wrap up the podcast. Sesh.
I'll say something real quickly. Like, that for me was like one of the hardest decisions of my life, to leave something that I built.
Mm.
And I had so much attachment. I came up with the name, the logo. I built it in Photoshop. I taught myself Photoshop, everything. And then I just remember saying, like, I was thinking about it for months. I'm like, this is like such hard for me to leave people that I inspired to join me, and then close that thing down and leave them behind. I just remember thinking, like, please, just like, it's like even thinking to God, please allow this to result in something, man, please. And then I never, like, we didn't win anything. We probably came roughly around 4th in Sydney as well.
Yeah, it was
like that.
about that top 3, top 4. So
This is like all across Australia, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
across Australia. So we flew down to Sydney, competed there. It was all paid for and all that stuff. And then I'm just like thinking, it didn't result in anything. But we had a lot of fun times and all of that. But it's now that I realize it. We're so bloody fortunate, to be in the room here with bloody Johnny Boy.
Oh yeah.
It's fucking wild, man.
crazy
Dude.
times.
It's insane.
We speak about luck a little bit, but
Boys, you guys
just
that
being
shit.
able to, both of you been interested in gaming when gaming was still that nerd thing when it didn't exist, to be able to competing at such a pro level, both of you in Australia in a similar location, to actually be able to have a conversation with each other and get along with each other.
Yeah.
And then for you to be able to, like, the easy decision for you is to not leave your team.
Yeah.
Similar. That's the easy decision.
Yeah.
And that's the decision most taken, or the path most taken, guaranteed.
Like whatever happened in those Call of Duty days, I don't even care. Like it's about now. Like, I'm just so thankful for, this relationship, and
it's been a long time. There's a lot of history there. And looking back on it, man, like I still to this day count my lucky stars for just like being that fortunate to have like deal there, and going through everything we did.
Yeah. And I'll talk about like what you were actually like. So like physically speaking, when I knew you were always a big boy, but then when we actually met in real life, you were 140 kilos probably at that time, right?
Yeah, or it would have been a little bit less.
A little bit less.
Yeah, it would
then?
have been probably
Yeah.
like 120.
And then
130,
140 you were your max.
Yeah.
At 120, you were so big that you know, you would always wear baggy clothes, always with a hoodie on, you know, obviously to cover the rolls and all of that. You would honestly have tits like this fucking big. No joke. They were hangers, man. They were some hangers.
I was a big boy, and this is what these guys don't realize.
No,
like
one tit is that big.
One tit.
One tit. And you know, like
Fuck,
when
man.
they were literally probably triple E's. but you know, like when a girl's got triple E's, they're together, right?
Oh yeah, it's
These ones
Oh,
go
yeah.
by the side.
this motherfucker laying down. He's got back tits doing this shit.
They would actually hang under his underarms.
This shit being in his
Fuck, man.
underarms.
That would be so miserable to live like that.
yeah, it was a hard time.
Yeah.
But like, it was shit. But at the same time, like I wasn't really like I was aware, but I was still like at that time I was still fortunate because I thought I had like good people around me too, you know. So I didn't really care. Like I cared obviously, but at the same time I was just trying to enjoy. Because at that time that was like that small piece of happiness. Like that was the only like piece of happiness I had in my life during that time.
It was from the gaming stuff.
Yeah, and just like not even just that, just like actually being at events with like
Oh,
Dylan and like mates and actually having friends and shit, you know.
yeah. But yeah, like not more seriously speaking, like Johnny Boy was so big. Yeah, he had, you know, that was the size of him. You had a lot of fat on your neck as well. When I think it literally pushed his head down. So I don't think he could pull it up even. And you had a lot of confidence issues where, yeah, you couldn't look in people's eyes. I remember when we were walking onto the stage, like we had to line up at the ceremony and in front of the cameras and it's live streamed to the whole world and all of this stuff. I felt really sorry for you.
Yeah, that was a shit time.
Yeah, like
I still
can just
have that
feel-
video.
Yeah,
Like I took a video of it like only recently, probably like 12 months ago.
yeah.
And just seeing like fuck.
Oh, we should put that on the screen.
I was I
Yeah.
was fucked
I'll
up
chuck it
back
on the
then.
screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
that's insane.
But yeah, like I could see like you were a damaged boy. It was bloody rough.
Far out, man.
Wait, well, where does like? Can we touch on your childhood? Like, where does
Yeah.
where's that damage come from? Like, what made you into that overweight, you know, person who really just has no social cues, is low confidence, low self esteem? Like,
Yeah, so I think
where'd that come from?
ultimately it's on my shoulders. At the end of the day, I was the reason that I was in that position, you know. And even moving past that, like I still had challenges beyond that time, because I would have been 18, 19, probably just turned 18, and then past that I still had issues. But before that, so yeah, like growing up, everyone has their like issues and struggles and challenges going through their childhood. You know, everyone faces something. I'm no different to that. And growing up, I didn't seek sympathy for that either. You know, I knew the cards that I got dealt with at the time. So like when I was young, my parents split. I didn't really know of a time that they were together. I had my brother who's just probably about 18 months, a bit less younger than me. And then from there, like my mum and stepdad were on one side, and then my father was on the other side. And then there was probably 15 years of just family court, just in and out of court. There was a lot of struggle. It was like, yeah, it was a hard time growing up. And I think a lot of that did impact of who I was then, but I didn't realize it at the time either. And I think from that experience, I think that's why I said like that small like happiness, like that probably 16 years was like the worst time. It was just struggle, pain, hurt, and to the point where, yeah, I had to grow up very quick, and I learned a lot about life at a young age when I probably didn't really need to learn those lessons so young, which hurt me growing up as well.
So did you feel like with those experiences that you had, you were forced to grow up quicker
Yeah,
and
so
be more aware of what's happening around you?
yeah,
Be more aware of how you're feeling. That kind of
yeah, I
stuff?
think I kind of, when you're in almost survival mode, you see the world a lot differently. And when there's a lot of pain around you and a lot of like hurt around you, and a lot of pain inflicted as well, you see the world almost like in a blur. And you almost kind of question reality in some ways. Like, is this just me? So like being that young, you know, like I was probably 12-ish or so when I was living at my mum and stepdad's, and they ended up kicking me out. So at that point, like I was on my own for a period of time. And like my parents didn't know. Like my dad thought I was at my mum's, my mum thought I was at the dad's, but I was sleeping in a park when I was like 12, 13, still going to school. I was flogging food from Woolies and like just doing everything I could to try and survive. And that period of time especially is when I had the most growth and kind of looking out in the world being like, where am I? Like, who am I? What am I doing? Like, this is like, surely like there has to be something from all of this. So
fighting for survival at the age of 12 is not an experience that I think many people have.
No, a lot of people can't relate to that.
You'll find that I think it's also perspective though. Yeah. Like I was saying, like a lot of people go through their thing. And for me, like going back on it, a lot of it was on my shoulders. You know, I was a shit kid growing up. And I think my parents, I can't blame my parents and like my stepdad at the time. Like I can't judge them or view them on the things that they kind of raised us in, because they also were going through their own challenges, their own journey, their own life. Like they had their own issues that they necessarily didn't kind of confront themselves, and that bled onto us as children. And then from that, like there was a lot of times there where they probably overreached too much as a child. But at the end of the day, like I still look back and be like, there's a lot of things that I could have done differently. There was a lot of signs and signals there where I still probably should have recognized growing up.
See, we know what you're talking about it's called extreme ownership. That's what you're doing right there now. To be able to recognize that, is that something you're realizing now, or is that something you realized at that age, that it was, you know, everything was, you know, it's on my shoulders. I can, you know, everything that is happening to me is something that, you know, is done to me for whatever my reason, or what's the correct wording there? I'm not sure, but is that something you realized back at that age, or is it something you're just realizing now? And like how? Because that's not an easy thing to know, right? Especially, well, really at any age, and with things that are so seeming out of your control. And, you know, with the divorce rate at 50%, a lot of people will blame that specifically. You know, they would say that's the one thing that turned me into whatever the hell, any other problems that they have and the problems that you had. So what is it that allowed you to realize that? And did you realize it back then?
I definitely didn't realize it back then.
Right.
Back then I was, like I was saying, I was pretty much in survival mode. You know, my parents split. So like when after that 12, 13 period, I was with my dad predominantly. My brother stayed with my mum and stepdad. So those first probably 12 years were essentially the worst. But in saying that, as I got older, and especially now having my little girl, looking back on like my childhood, and even like my 8-year-old boy on my partner's side, understanding the impact and influence that you have as a parent on your children, and going through everything I did and having to answer questions within myself, I realized they didn't answer those questions themselves. And that's where I kind of stood back and I was like, all right, well, I can't really blame them for the upbringing that we had, because they were facing their own challenges and their own issues that they didn't necessarily actually face, and they didn't answer those questions within themselves. And that kind of made me reflect on it, being like, you know, like being that age, understanding what I do now, there was a lot of signs and signals where like I did make it a lot harder for them as well as a child. Whether it was because of my environment or the things that were happening is kind of irrelevant. I still had choices that I made back then. And like 5, 6, 7, sure, like you kind of understanding a little bit of like right and wrong. Back then I still knew that everything that was going around me was not right. And this was not kind of an environment that is classified as normal, you know.
Is that why you kind of distance yourself from other people? Because you felt like what you're going through is not normal, so you can't really relate to anyone else?
Yeah, I was definitely an introvert. And I think that kind of definitely, as I got older, like that led into the forms like social anxiety and like Dill was speaking, you know, not having any self-confidence, insecurities. And and not being able to trust anyone either, because you got to remember, like, I was like a young kid having trust in these people that are carrying over you, and in some ways they were inflicting a lot of pain as well. So there was kind of a lot of confusion growing up. But in saying that, coming back to like taking ownership of it, I also, being a parent now, have taken a lot of positives from my mum, stepdad, and dad, because they still had a lot of lessons to teach, and I wouldn't be the man I am today without them. 100%. Like, a lot of my qualities, a lot of characteristics and behavior, and the way I see the world and interact with people and all that kind of stuff still stems from my childhood. So it isn't all like doom and gloom, but there was a lot there that I had to grow up and kind of deal with. So
yeah.